In this lesson, I will explain how to recognize the present tense of the main irregular verbs in Latin, the indicative active parts of the present tense. Here is a table of the main irregular verbs, and when I say main irregular verbs, I mean to say that I am not here exhausting the number of irregular verbs in Latin. However, compared with French or Spanish or Italian or the other daughter languages of Latin, there are in Latin not that many irregular verbs. Indeed, compared with Greek, there are hardly any irregular verbs at all. And these are the main irregular verbs that you will encounter. This being said, let us see how the present tense is formed in Latin. We start with the root. This is the basic idea of the verb. In the regular verbs, it never changes. In the irregular verbs, it is highly unpredictable, which is, of course, what makes them irregular verbs. To this root, we add a connecting vowel, and this makes, as it says in the slide, it makes for a better join between the root and the other parts of the verb. After this comes the personal ending, and this shows who is doing the action of the verb. Let us see how this mode of construction works with a regular verb. Let us take monio, I warn or advise, or in this example, monet, he or she warns or indeed advises. This verb is made up as follows. We have the root, mon, and because monio is a regular verb, this root never changes. To this, we add the particular connecting vowel for this class of verb. Here it is e. To this, we add the personal ending, which shows you that he or she is warning or advising. We take away the hyphens, we have monet. We standardize the colours, we have monet. Here is the entire conjugation of monio. When I say that this is a regular verb, what I mean is that the root never changes, and it is possible to predict all the other parts of this tense by looking at any one part. For example, if you look at monemus, we are warning or advising, it is possible from this to predict they are advising, monent, because the only thing that changes with this kind of regular verb is that blue personal ending. So long as you know those blue personal endings, you are, within reason, able to predict any other part of the verb. And for this reason, we class it as a regular verb. Let us now turn to the irregular verbs. We start with the usual order of persons, and from this, we move to the verb I am or sum. Let us see how this is formed. We start with the root, su. To this we add only the personal ending, which here is not O but M. No connecting vowel. Use singular, R. The root here is E. It changes from su. Still no connecting vowel. You attach the personal ending directly to the root. S. Notice how the root has changed again. It's moved from su to e to s. Same personal ending, however. Su. We have a repetition of the root, but it is quite unpredictable. Same personal ending, however. S. Another repetition of the root, but again, unpredictable. Unless you know this, you are not able to predict that it will be estis. It could be sutis, etis, whatever. Here it is estis because it is. Here is another repetition of the root, and here is the personal ending. Here then is the present tense of sum. Because its root is so variable, it is not, as said, possible to predict any one part by looking at any other. You really have no choice here but to learn it. Indeed, you must learn the verb sum because it is the most basic verb in the language, and this verb has many other uses than simply saying that something is or some things are. At this point, let us turn to these blue personal endings. These do not change. O or M, those are variable, but it is a limited variability. What you need to learn in order to recognize the present tense of an irregular verb in Latin is O/M, st, mus, tis, und. Take away the M, and the ost, mus, tis, und, those endings are standard across all of the regular verbs as well. And so this is part of the irreducible minimum of what you need to learn in Latin. Let us move to the next verb in our table, I bring or ferro. Here is the root, fer. To this you attach the personal ending, ferro. Fers, fährt. So far the verb looks pretty regular. You attach the personal ending directly to the root. If, however, you try to predict we are bringing, is it fermus? There's the root. Connecting vowel. Ferimus. You would not have been able to predict that by looking at the first three parts of the verb. What about you are bringing? Not feritis, fertis. How about they are bringing? Not only a connecting vowel, but a different connecting vowel, ferunt. Because of its unpredictability, a clear irregular verb. Let us move now to two irregular verbs which are clearly connected to each other. Volo, I want. Here the personal ending is joined directly to the root. There is no need felt for a connecting vowel. Nolo, the same. You singular want, or thou wantest, vis. You would not be able to predict that by looking only at volo, and so again, a clear case of an irregular verb. Let's see what that is as you singular do not want. Non vis. I think we can conclude pretty reasonably on the basis of this that nolo started life as non volo and was over time joined together, squashed together from non volo to nolo. You have nolo, the first person singular, but for whatever reason, in the second person singular, in the you singular part of it, it is non vis. Vult, he, she wants. Again, a change of root which makes that part of the verb unpredictable. Non vult, probably unpredictable. I wouldn't be able to predict that. Volumus. Here we have something that looks like regularity. We have a root, we have a connecting vowel, and we have the usual personal ending. Nolumus, the same. Vultis, nothing regular here. Non vultis, not predictable. Volunt, not predictable. Nolunt, not predictable. With these two verbs, you cannot predict any one part by looking at another. Indeed, if you read across the table rather than down the table, if you try to predict the negative of vis, you'd get it wrong because non vis is non vis. We move to the verb I go. The root here is e. To this you add the personal ending. No need here for a connecting vowel. Once we move to the you singular part, or the thou part of the verb, the root changes from E to I. Usual personal ending joined, but a fundamental change of root here. Here the root remains the same, and I suppose that if you knew only is, thou goest, if you knew only that part of the verb, you could make a stab at predicting he, she, it goes. But if you also know I go, ao, you would not be able to predict that he, she, it goes is eat. Emus, we go. Eatis, you, plural, go. And then the root changes back to E for the third person plural, the they part of the verb. You now have for the first time a connecting vowel and then the personal ending. Do spend some time looking at this table. I have said on several occasions, and I'll repeat now, that if you look at any one part of any of these verbs, you will not be able to predict any other part of the same verb. This is what makes them irregular. This is what makes them, in contrast to the regular verbs, necessary to be learned. Rote learning, you learn sum es est, sumus estis sunt, and so you work across the table going down. These are important verbs. They are used very often, and so it is essential that you should be able to recognize these verbs in any of their parts, and the only way that you can recognize these verbs in any of their parts is to learn them. If you have followed my course on the regular verbs in Latin, you will know that I advise you, rather than to try for brute memorization, you should look for patterns and remember the patterns and be prepared to apply them. Where the irregular verbs are concerned, there is, I regret, no alternative but to brute memorization. Thank you for watching this lesson.